Between them, the 6 helmsmen in this edition of the America's Cup boast 9 Olympic medals, 43 World Championships and 78 national and international regatta triumphs. Add in the rest of the crew, and that's another 17 Olympic medalists, 58 world champions, and 47 other notable victories. Across the fleet, the sailors in this America's Cup have notched a combined 77 previous cups between them. 11 have won it before. They call this the pinnacle of sailing for a reason. Welcome to the America's Cup. Hello and welcome to beautiful Bermuda, this stunning archipelago providing us with the best possible backdrop for the 35th America's Cup, the oldest international sporting trophy featuring the fastest boats in the world and the best sailors on the planet. I'm Alistair Eakin alongside Ken Reid, veteran America's Cup skipper and president of North Sails. And after disappointment yesterday with light wind speeds, we're ready for another day of top flight racing on the Great Sound. 4 races scheduled for today in the second phase of the round-robin stage. Frank Camas' French taking centre stage, Sir Ben Ainsley's British and Dean Barker's Japanese, all racing twice. The Swedes, they've got a day off today. Here are the standings. The defenders, the Americans, leading the fleet. The Kiwis in second place, similarly with 5 race wins. The British have 4 points, 2 wins here in Bermuda, 2 additional points carried over, of course, from their World Series victory. The Swedes, Japanese and French all in that battle to avoid elimination from the qualifiers. So I'm happy to say an improvement in conditions today after yesterday's abandonment. Expected wind speeds of up to 10 knots, so we should complete today's rundown without any problems, and those boats should be flying. First up then, race number 4 of the second round-robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. 2 of the teams at the bottom of the table, they have concerns. Dean Barker's Japanese against Frank Camas' French. And the Japanese haven't raced for a couple of days now, so they've had some time to tweak their systems and adjust a few things. The constant theme of the America's Cup, daily development. And ahead of today, their helmsman Dean Barker is wary of the unpredictability of the French.
No, they definitely, definitely got different faces, and hopefully when they turn up today, we'll, we won't get too much of a rude shock. But we're treating them with a huge amount of respect. They've taken 2 good race wins so far, and they can easily go out there and sail well in these conditions.
After 2 days off, Japan is ready to start making a statement. Driver Dean Barker and tactician wing trimmer Chris Draper have sailed very well off the starting line to date, but it's finishing that has been their Achilles heel, keeping a lead. The start sequence will have Barker try to end this race early with aggressive match race tactics. And as we enter the second half of this double round-robin series, this is a huge race for the Japanese.
Well, the French had a tough time of it on Tuesday, comfortably second best to Jimmy Spithill's Americans, but they have a couple of wins here, lots of good luck messages you may be able to see there on that board. And helmsman Frank Camas is excited about today's improved conditions.
Well, better than yesterday with a little more wind, so it's we expect to race, which is good. And light wind for sure. So it's like yesterday. We never sail against the other with this wind, so it will be a surprise. I hope it's a good surprise for us.
To move on to the Challenger semifinals, the French need this race. Japan, Sweden, and France are all tied for the last spot. But a race like this is even more critical for Frank Camas. If 2 teams are tied on points at the end of this double round-robin series, the America's Cup World Series results become the tiebreaker, and France loses that tiebreaker against all comers.
So the stakes already rising fast given that qualifiers table. We are reaching crunch time here in Bermuda. Those at the bottom of the table can ill afford too many more mistakes. It's getting very exciting, Ken, isn't it? But nail-biting as well for several of the teams.
Incredible pressure, and the fact that we are this late in the event and still have 3 teams tied on points for that crucial final spot. I mean, the final spot is the one obviously you don't want to be in. Somebody's going home at the end of this week, and between the Japanese, the French, and Artemis Racing, likely it's one of those 3.
And the British still not entirely safe at this point. Worth remembering as well, isn't it, that both Britain and France, by the end of today, we'll only have 2 more races in the qualifiers left. Britain will have Japan and USA to come. The French will have Sweden and New Zealand to come. So every race, absolutely key. Here's a reminder of how things now that we're deep into the second round robin stage. All those errors will be magnified, all defeats taking on greater and greater significance. That boat will tell you that we have a delay to the opening race of the day, which is Japan against France, Dean Barker against Frank Camas. And we will be put in a holding pattern of a kind for a few short moments, which will allow us to chat with Joey Newton, part of the Oracle Team USA outfit here in Bermuda. He's on the water for us again today, as he has been for much of the opening few days of racing. Joey, good to have you with us again. Give us a flavour of conditions down there.
Yeah, hi Ken, hi Ali. It's not as light as yesterday, thankfully. So I've probably got about 8 or 9 knots on the water, which is just perfect for these boats. Everybody's still in their light air configuration, which means great big boards, big sails. They've got the wings powered up, so this is plenty of breeze for these boats to be sailing in.
And a stable breeze today, puffy, shifty. We've seen all kinds of different things. Joey, give us an idea of what the wind shifts out on the water are going to be like.
Again, we've got the breeze coming over the land before it ends up on the race course, so you're going to see a lot of shifts. Hopefully it'll settle down more than it was yesterday. And I think the way Ian Murray, the race director, has his course set up, it'll be a good, fair course, and we should see some good racing.
Well, it's good to know that we have better wind speeds.
The most famous anemometer in America's Cup is on that.
Getting a lot of airtime at the moment.
Is on that committee boat. Well, you know, the wind speed is just above the minimum. But I don't believe that's why we have a postponement. I'm guessing because it is, you know, remember, the lighter the breeze, the more, well, we call it fluky, the more directional the breeze is. It's not quite as stable, like Joey was just saying, plus it's coming over the land. The race director, Ian Murray, wants to always make sure this is a fair fight and a fair race course, so he'll take a little extra time sometimes just to make sure everything's lined up properly and ready to make it a fair fight for all these guys.
Okay, so while those decisions are being taken and we wait for race number 1, we're going to take a look back now at race 14 from the first round robin stage. An absolute humdinger between old foes Peter Burling and Nathan Outridge. The two helmsmen are no strangers, of course, bitter rivals from the 49er class. Outridge won Olympic gold over Burling in 2012, but the Kiwi hasn't lost since, beating the Australian into second to take gold in Rio last year. Two of the hot favourites with a score to settle. Sparks were going to fly. Race number 14, the second of the day in the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. Sweden and New Zealand passing very, very tight to each other in the pre-start, Ken.
Yeah, setting up similar. I think the way the starting box is shaped, where the land is, what the breeze direction is, for sure, the boat that's first in, and this time the Swedes, are setting up early back to the line again. It'll be very interesting to see if New Zealand dials down and tries that big sweep and that hook maneuver. They have plenty of time left, 30 seconds, and up on the foils, and here they come.
Absolutely steaming, aren't they, at 37 knots.
25 seconds to go. They're very close to the line. So this is a tough spot. If they can get a hook underneath and get back up toward the line, Artemis could be early. Let's see if Burling can pull this off and not get too deep in the box. This is now a time and distance. Time and distance. Can Burling get through the wing wash of Artemis, or has Artemis done a great job of defending that lured position and getting off the line, but actually over early? They actually pulled the trigger slightly early. Unforced error, and they're going to have to drop 2 lengths behind New Zealand. Wow.
So yesterday it was a penalty for the Kiwis for an early start in their race against the British. This time it's Nathan Outridge who's pulled the trigger just a little bit too soon, fractionally soon, and they have to stop and get 2 boat lengths behind Emirates Team New Zealand to shake this penalty off. That is, I think Swedish fans are cringing at this stage. Had the start completely won and just literally pulled the trigger too quick. See them sailing away. They're trying their hardest to slow the boat down to get 2 boat lengths behind. They still haven't done it. They still have that penalty on, so they have to plunge it, and they should shake it now. There it goes. Has to be one of the most frustrating things out there, deliberately slowing your boat down when you know you've stolen a march on your rival.
It does not come naturally for any of us, and especially any of these guys, but a big break for Emirates Team New Zealand, who were Burling was boxed out pretty effectively by Outridge in that start. Big break by kind of giving that advantage right back again.
Yes, happy there.
And as we know, these 2 boats have plenty of speed. They've exhibited that already in the first couple of days of racing out here on the Great Sound. Kiwis with 3 wins. France, Japan and Britain have been seen off. They lost to Oracle Team USA. Good pace from the Swedes too as they look to overhaul this advantage.
Again, this is a bit of positioning coming into this gate. They're most likely going to see the Swedes jibe onto starboard in order to get a split and go off on the other side of the race course, and there they go on cue. But this is where the Kiwis have been so smooth going around these bottom marks with serious pace, never touching the water. They look smooth as we've seen so far on any of the boats on average, and they certainly didn't let us down right there either.
A split course then, and off they go in their separate directions. So that was a terrific battle between New Zealand and Sweden from Monday, but happily we are in a position to show some live action now from the second round robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. And it will be Japan against France, Dean Barker up against Frank Camas. A couple of terrific helmsmen with enormous amounts of experience. So these 2 men will know very well the consequences of defeat in this race. Ken, it is crunch time for these 2, more or less.
It's full crunch time, and I think the whole world is a little surprised that Japan is only on 2 wins right now, and I think equally the whole world's surprised that France is on 2 wins right now. They were certainly meant to be the dark horses of this event, the French, and they've had a couple phenomenal races and surprised some of the heavyweights. So let's see if they can do it again. Good news is we've got 7.5 knots of breeze, and the boats are popping right up on their foils. So we're gonna have a decent race here today. It'll be slower speeds, but these are going to be flying foiling boats, and we will see even more dramatically, as you just saw, kind of a slow jibe by the French, and how long it's going to take to get the boat back up on the foil again. Really hard to do.
So here we go then, race number 4 of the second round robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. The opening race of the day, Japan with the vastly experienced Dean Barker at the helm, pitting his wits against Frank Camas in France. We've seen this pre-start decide plenty of races here in Bermuda already, Ken, haven't we?
Yeah, What is noticeable here so far is we saw the Japanese jibe and stayed up on their foils. We haven't seen Groupama jibe yet and stay on their foils. The stability. We'll notice up here in the upper left corner, there's our starting line right there. These guys are a little bit early coming back for the start, but remember, in light air, it's also much harder to accelerate. The French have an interesting spot. They can dip down below Dean Barker if they want to there, or they can just try to continue and gap off. But 15 seconds to go, they better get going. I think they're going to be late.
The Japanese and Dean Barker have made a fast start, something of their trademark, and again they are off to the better beginning as they hit the start line, and Groupama Team France taking something of a nosedive early on, allowing the Japanese to stretch away up on the foils and away on this first reach to the mark.
As we always say up here, it's very simple for us to criticize what looks obvious, but I'm guessing Frank Camas will not be happy at all with that start. They were kind of tame. It looked like they were going to try to take a running start, a running rip at the line, and they were just late and really late. And in your critical race so far in the series, the last thing you want to do is give your rival just an easy head start. And for Dean Barker, that was an easy head start.
French were edged out in comprehensive fashion by the USA as well, weren't they, in their last race in that pre-start. And as they hit the first mark, it is SoftBank Team Japan and Dean Barker who are in control of proceedings. Their issue, I guess, Ken, and we spoke about it a little bit before the race began, this notion of hanging on to the leads that they've built, because they've had a number of occasions in which they've been overhauled.
They had a nice comeback win after losing a start to Artemis, but look at the angle differences. This is going to be very different for all of us to watch, for all these boats to participate in, because we haven't really had this light of air. Of course, they have been testing over the last couple months, but they'd have new wingtips on, they'd have new setups, new configurations. They all have their Code 1 jibs on today, which are their larger jibs, and this is a telling moment for me. How stable is France? Because that really helps determine whether they're going to stay in this race or not.
The early indications are not terribly stable, but there is a long way to go. Plenty of time to iron out the creases.
25.
You see, when you put those hulls in the water, how high or close to the wind you have to sail to try to get the boat up on the foils. Really long foils here today. Look at how long they almost come to the center line of the boat. Each of the, again, the longer the foil, the longer that foil is, the more it's made for light air, the more it's made to lift the boat rather than flat out boat speed through the water. Massive long foils, and already 150 meter, not just 150 meter lead, but they're one jibe ahead. If they can lay into this mark, if Japan can get into the leeward gate, this bottom gate number 2, without having to jibe again, they're going to have quite a substantial lead. Groupama, Joey, we were talking out there, Joey on the water, we were talking before, Groupama might have some new foils that you guys haven't seen before?
Yeah, that's right, Ken. Yesterday we saw a Groupama launch with a set of new light air foils, really long tips on them, getting towards sort of 2.5, 3 meters long. And that, I think today you're seeing them, they're actually going really well. They've had a really bad jibe, their first maneuver, they lost a lot. But in boat speed wise, I actually think their boat is going really well.
SoftBank Team Japan leading the way though at the leeward gate, gate 2, and heading upwind once more. And a little bit of a contrast in the way the Japanese are maneuvering. Very smooth, everything under control.
It seems a bit low octane though, doesn't it, compared to what we've been watching this past week. But the phenomenal part of it is that they're flying at all, really. It's actually incredible that they can get these things out of the water. It's only blowing 7 knots, and for sailors around the world, 7 knots is not exactly windy.
Well, these kind of conditions actually might not be the kind of conditions that Frank Camas will be too concerned about. He had some of his best results, didn't he, during the World Series in light air. They were pretty good in New York when the air was relentlessly fluky.
But they just, again, that stability. Look at how slow the boat goes coming out of attack when those hulls get in the water. Painfully slow, down to 7 or 8 knots. Japan isn't exactly popping out of the water and flying it. And at one stage, let's go back to Joey Newton for a second. At one stage, Joey, at what stage, I should say, do the hulls actually not come out of the water? Do you sail as a displacement boat rather than a foiling boat?
Well, it's around this wind speed, which is kind of what you're seeing. And the important thing to remember with these foiling boats is you have to invest some speed. You have to invest some of your distance to get the boat up on the foil. And that might mean heading away from the mark that you're heading to or you're trying to get to. So what you see Groupama doing right now, and you saw Japan do before, they just sail along in a displacement mode until they get a good puff of breeze and they say, okay guys, let's accelerate now. And they invest that speed to get up on the foil. Once you're on the foil, the boats start ripping along great, but you need to pay something to get them up there.
And Ali, and to add on to that, I think you need to be patient, you know, and you can't just push the bow down and try to get it all in one spot. You got to slowly build the way Dean Barker and the Japanese did after that tack.
Well, they are slowly building their lead, even if the speed is not something to take the breath away just at the moment.
70 metres. 3, 2, 1, here we go.
So you can just get a flavour of quite how tough it is in the breeze out there for these manoeuvres to happen at any kind of pace. They've slowed the Japanese to 5 knots.
Only blowing 7 knots out there right now, even lulls even less than that. So they're going to have to be super patient, a totally different type of sailing out there on a day like today. Patient, slow maneuvers. See, Dean Barker actually ran around the front of the wing to get across the boat there. He's trying to keep the weight out of the back of the boat as to drag the transoms in the water, the back end of the boat. So completely different setup. And, you know, you don't see the grinders huffing and puffing every second around the race course, although they still are certainly trying to pump that hydraulic fluid through the boat, but it's displacement sailing. You're just seeing Barker get out of the water there right now. He was very patient, as we were talking about, stayed on the wind in displacement mode and let it come to him rather than forcing the issue and sailing super wide and losing a lot of distance. The speed differences, Ali, out on the race course sometimes. Sometimes we have 10 knots of speed difference between boats at times. Here we have 4 or 5 knots. They're up on their foil, but not, they're flying, but I wouldn't say, they're flying literally, I wouldn't say figuratively flying.
Yep, the hulls are out of the water, but the speeds are not what we've been used to seeing across the opening few days here in Bermuda. But the America's Cup is all about being able to adapt, not just in boat design, but in tactics, and all those changes, all these wind shifts require an adaptable mind, an adaptable approach.
Even though the boats are going slower, we've come up on this next gate in kind of our normal time. These are like 18 to 20-minute races, and that's because Regatta Director Ian Murray has the capability of shortening the legs up quite small in order to have a pretty similar timed race course out there. I'll tell you, these guys look sharp.
Smartly rounds the gate for SoftBank Team Japan, and downwind. Just 2 race wins to the Japanese names. They've beaten the French in their previous race. They've beaten the British, but they've lost to the Swedes, the Kiwis, and the Americans. And that does not look particularly stable.
As a displacement tack, it may not be as far-fetched as you think, though. As long as they keep it on the breeze and let the boat build. Look at Dean Barker taking off at 22, 23 knots. What was only like a 400-meter lead, obviously is wildly accentuated by the fact that once the boat rounds that top gate, they're going 2 or 3 times the speed downwind again. So it's kind of a bit of a yo-yo, you know, a down and back. Frank Camas needs to find a little bit of pace, though, and I think the maneuverability, we're seeing the maneuverability and the instability maybe showing itself again for the French.
45 secondes avant la bande de riz.
C'est à nouveau de la droite.
You know, Ali, they also have the capability on the water to shorten the course literally as well. They can actually shorten at a gate now that they've gone around essentially a time and a half. They can shorten if they think this race course or the breeze is getting too light or the race course is unfair or they're running out of a time. Remember, the time limit is 25 minutes on these races. They actually can finish the race at any number of these gates. They don't have to reach the boats all the way back in towards the America's Cup Village.
So as you may be able to see from the graphic top left of your screen, the race course has been shortened, as Ken was describing. The final gate approaching.
I think they're going to go, if we're believing our graphic correctly, they might go up and down one more time, but not have that reach all the way into the finish.
Getting up.
We'll try to find out here a little bit more. It's not. I think the 4 of 6, Ali, they're probably going to go up to the top gate one more time and then back downwind. They've only eliminated that reach back in to America's Cup Village right out in front of where we're sitting.
Right forward. All right. Pump it, Des, pump it. Pump it, Josh. Go, 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 go. Hit it, hit it.
Look at those angles. The angle changes are really incredible. And as the boat accelerates and it pops up its foil, you see them bearing off sometimes 15, 20, even 30 degrees. Dramatic changes.
So that's a really good example of what Joey Newton was explaining to us not that long ago about the need to invest perhaps with an angle of attack which you might not be expecting, but then you bear fruit with the speed that you've subsequently gained.
Invest is a great word, but it's patient investing. You know, yes, there's a fine line of having to put the bow up or down depending on which course, on which leg you're on, but you don't want to do it so dramatically that you're just giving up massive amounts of distance. So it's really, you see the smooth, you see the good guys. The good guys do it really well in a situation like this. It's not easy. This is you can make a case this is more difficult conditions to sail in than when it's blowing 18 knots. You see the dramatic course change that the French just did after that jibe.
Well, they're a long way off the pace here, and it's looking like a fifth defeat of the qualifiers for Frank Camas and co from what would be 7 races and only 3 left before somebody goes home.
Yeah, not just a long way off, but they jibed a little early. I'm not even sure they're going to make this gate. They have to get down around this mark, and I'm not so sure they're going to be able to do it.
Making heavy weather of this, the French.
See, they have to go through this gate right there, and they're not going to make it. So they did a jibe. They're going to have to do one more jibe. And as we know, these maneuvers are the pain and torture of a maneuver on a catamaran on a light air day like today is, yeah, it's not pretty.
Well, when you compare the two from a couple of days back when the wind speeds were really good, it's almost excruciating to watch them because you feel everybody on board is just itching for that kind of pace, and
blowing
they're just
and
not getting it.
Come on, please.
Please do.
They're only going 6 knots. They're literally zigzagging back and forth right now, not getting a whole lot closer to the gate itself. So Got to be patient on a day like today. Again, it's very easy to say as we sit up here in the confines of our beautiful glass little booth, but it's not going perfect for Frank Camas and his French team right now.
Well, this has got to be enormously demoralizing apart from anything else. Everything slowing almost to a halt.
I think they're going to jibe one more time to go through the gate. Trying to look on our instruments. We still have about 7 or 8 knots of breeze out there right now. I think up at the top of the course that the Japanese are going 20, 21 knots while these guys are going 3. So you don't have to be a brain surgeon, Ali, to realize that this is not a perfect scenario for the French.
I think at various different points those French might want to start getting out and pushing. It's very, very tough. And in the meantime, the Japanese are cruising away to victory. Tough race conditions, but they've handled them very, very well indeed. Consummate, really.
Yeah, as you would think from a Barker-led team with really good tools. You know, it's no secret that Oracle and Japan have almost identical platforms. Their foil technology, their wing trim technology, and their technique. You know, we keep talking to different people about speed, but the technique part of it is as important.
So the Japanese all but there.
Yeah, they have one more leg to go. They're probably gonna come across here, jibe maybe a couple times, and right on in through that gate. This is where the finish line is going to be. There won't be that reach into the finish, and as the French struggle well down, almost a leg behind right now. This is barring any sort of disaster for the Japanese. This is looking pretty comfortable at this stage. Let me go back to Joey Newton on the water. Technique, probably, Joey, in this type of condition is as or maybe even more important than when the breeze is on and you're just kind of hurtling around the racetrack.
That's exactly right, Ken. I mean, what we're seeing here is a talented team with a good platform, good foils that have spent a lot of time training on the water. And the difference between these two boats is basically technique and how they're being sailed. Japan have been here for probably 2 years practicing on the water, and the French have just had a lot less time. And the difference is what you see. There's a leg of difference in just how they're sailing the boats.
Ominous signs for the French, and the Japanese just beginning to flex their muscles. They need this point. They need it badly. They're taking on the defenders in the 3rd race of the day here this afternoon. So a heavy workload, but a chance for them to claw their way up this table and off the bottom. We know for a fact that one of the Japanese or the French will leapfrog Sweden at the end of the day.
And as they jibe one last time into that final gate, we believe this is the finish line. And they will not be doing that reach into the finish. And there it is, the checkered flag, so to speak.
Not quite the blast finish that we've been used to seeing down the runway here on the Great Sound, but nevertheless, terrific accomplishment in testing conditions for the Japanese. A clever, canny, patient race. Very slick operation from Dean Barker. Reaping the benefits of time here on the water in Bermuda. And another race win notched for SoftBank Team Japan.
An interesting byproduct of the fact that Oracle and Japan use very similar parts and pieces to their boat, very similar platforms, is the fact that other teams will be really looking at this race closely and trying to figure out how they may go against Oracle Team USA, because the platforms are almost identical. you can really learn something. A lot of the teams have said they watch Japan almost as closely as they watch Oracle Team USA with regard to the challengers getting to the finals against the defender, and really should be able to judge how well Oracle's going in different conditions based off of the Japanese results.
Similarly, the British and the Kiwis up next will have had a keen eye on proceedings out there in this first race, just recognizing the pitfalls, working out all those various different bits of the race they have to get right, and that notion of patience that you were talking about, Ken.
And just a little bit of a puff, and these guys look okay, but like Joey was saying before, like we were talking about, the technique of sailing these boats, it's just time on the water. Like anything we've ever done in sailing, any of us, whether you're sailing an Optimist or an AC 50-footer, it's time on the water. There's nothing that can take the place of time on the water, and let's face it, Groupama has had way less time on the water than all of the other teams.
So let's have a word with Dean Barker, the helmsman of SoftBank Team Japan. Dean, you've got another win in the bag, 3 now for the regatta as a whole. Testing conditions out there today, patience critical?
We could say that, yeah. It's definitely testing. Yeah, it wasn't quite what we were expecting when we left the dock this morning, but you've got to deal with what you've got out here. So it's yeah, the guys did a fantastic job getting the boat around the course in good shape, and nice to get away with a win, because these are the days where it's easy to have a few go a bit topsy-turvy.
Dean, we've been talking a lot about technique and how having a couple of years on the water obviously does not hurt you guys. We see you running around the front of the wing, for example, in the middle of tacks and sometimes in jibes. Just give us an idea of how much practice goes into these light air days, how hard it is to sail these boats in these light air days, even compared to when it's a little easier maybe and you can just pop up in the foils, piece of cake.
It's actually, I think these conditions are probably the hardest that you have to contend with these boats, because you're going from station sailing to choosing when to foil, when not to foil, and it's yeah, the kinetics and body movement and stuff is obviously key for all the guys to be able to sail the boat well around the course. So it's yeah, there's no sort of set plays. There's a fair bit of freestyling going on. It's never good when I'm going around the front of the wing, for sure, but yeah, and it's just yeah, it's the challenging conditions we face.
In all the practice racing that you've done against all the other teams, have you felt comfortable in this breeze? Because let's face it, as June comes in, it doesn't exactly roar in like a lion. This is when the breeze tends to drop a little bit. This has to be at least somewhat of a good sign that you guys are this quick in the light stuff. Have you been good against all the teams when you've been practicing?
Well, we're definitely aware that we've got to be able to race well in all conditions. Bermuda's variable, and that's one of the nice things about racing here, is that it's not one-dimensional. But we know on a day like today is typical sort of breeze strength we can expect here as sort of June progresses, and you've got to be able to race well in all of it. So it's adapting to the conditions and dealing with what you've got. But the gains and losses in this stuff are massive if you're a little bit off the game, and from the practice racing we've done here, it's yeah, you learn some pretty hard lessons at times.
Dean, many thanks for your time. We really appreciate it, and congratulations on your 3rd victory here in Bermuda.
Yeah, cheers guys, thank you.
So the Japanese edging ahead of the Swedes and the French on their 2 points in the overall standings, and Frank Camas and crew still going.
Still going up in the foils. Live and learn. You got to learn. So not going to figure out how to do this any better unless you make mistakes. Making the mistakes is often the best form of learning, and these guys will have plenty to talk about tonight. They still got one more jive into the finish line. They will have certainly plenty to talk about with their coaching staff and video and statistics and all the numbers coming off the boat, and you know what, they'll be better not just tomorrow, but they'll hopefully be better in the next race.
So one last maneuver for Frank Camas and Groupama Team France. It's not particularly pretty, but at this point, frankly, it matters not.
Le rappel. C'est bon. Allez, ça vole.
So a very tricky race comes to a close for the French, and frankly the result something of a body blow for them as the qualifiers draw towards a conclusion. So one more race for them today against Sir Ben Ainsley's Great British outfit. And here the race summary. The Japanese off to another good start, Ken. They've made that their trademark.
They have won nearly every start, I believe. We'll go back and check that out, but every start that they've been in so far. And you know, Dean Barker's got as much time in foiling catamarans as anybody in the world, and stretching out on every leg, not a surprise.
So we're straight on to race number 5 of this second round robin stage. It's 4 times Olympic gold medalist Sir Ben Ainsley's British Land Rover BAR against the hotly tipped Emirates Team New Zealand and their young sailing superstar Peter Burling. The British enjoying their second win of the regatta on Tuesday. They saw off the Swedes for the second time here. They put their campaign firmly back on track after a pretty ropey few days. Their helmsman Sir Ben Ainsley knows this will be a really good gauge of their ability.
Yeah, the Kiwis are going really well in this competition, as expected. You know, they're fast in all conditions. It's pretty light winds expected for this race, so we'll just have to see how we stack up speed-wise and try and give them a good fight. Right.
Well, all of Land Rover BAR and their fans let out a huge sigh of relief yesterday, or day before yesterday, with a win over Artemis Racing. That win followed 4 straight losses and some serious soul-searching for all involved. It's now time to capitalize on that result and also gain a win over a team not named Artemis. The Kiwis have been very solid to date, so a win in this race could be a massive boost to the program, which has been up and down to date.
So the British with port entry this time as they look to outmaneuver the Kiwi crew. This a repeat of the race in day 3 of the regatta. It was won comfortably by the New Zealanders, but with each contest, of course, the slate is wiped clean and the conditions provide the sailors with a fresh set of challenges. And Kenny, in Ben Ainsley and Peter Burling, we have 2 of the most intuitive, talented individuals that the world of sailing has ever seen.
Exactly, and you see that Ainsley got right up on the foils very quickly, as did Emirates Team New Zealand. Ainsley was out early today. I think they were out around 10 o'clock this morning, sailing around a lot, whether they're trying or testing new things. I have my binoculars out, and I'll tell you what, they look stable. They look up on their foils very comfortably in this breeze strength. And I would be very surprised if they didn't challenge this kind of leader contending team, the Kiwis. I wouldn't be surprised if Ainsley challenged them hard in this race.
Race number 5 of this second round robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. Ainsley against Burling, Britain against New Zealand, and the chase is on in the pre-start.
Turning up.
Still only about 7 knots of breeze on the race course. A very different look to what we have seen to date. You see the, we'll get a good look at them in a bit, the super long foils on these boats in order to try to get the hulls out of the water and gain some stability. 30 seconds to go. I think accelerating is even more difficult in this condition. It's harder to anticipate if you're going to pop up on the foils or not. 20 seconds to go before the start. Looks like a time and distance start. Kiwis are already kind of sending it, trying to get there.
Well, they're picking up some good speed, the New Zealanders on the outside.
Can they slingshot around the front of Ainsley? Ainsley's just a little closer to the line. Can he get up on the foils effectively and fend them off?
Very, very tight at the start. and Land Rover BAR crossed the line in front, but the Kiwis gaining on them all the time with just that little bit of extra speed. Heading for Mark 1, and Peter Burling just nudging his way in front in this drag race to the first mark.
They've now almost evened out in speed. This is a really interesting drag race at 7.5 knots of breeze. Can the Kiwis get over them? Doesn't look like it. It looks like, in fact, they've decided they can't get over them, have slowed down a little bit in order to be able to kind of fall in on their transom at the mark.
Well, really good pace from these two at the outset.
It's interesting, that little wiggle that the Kiwis did they do that on purpose or not? Because here they are kind of extending forward again.
Yeah, so he's going to get us this next time, unfortunately. Then we're going to have to bail out here.
That's the voice of Sir Ben Ainsley. He reckons that the Kiwis have done enough to edge past him on this first mark rounding.
That wing wash will be throwing behind.
What happened?
Oh dear. What happened indeed. That
What
was
happened?
a bit of a horror show from the British crew.
Just killing us. Absolutely killing us.
We'll let Ben be the commentator right now. I'm not very pleased, Ben Ainsley, I might add. One bad jibe, and look at the distance. We still haven't gotten going. These guys just did a foiling job and a jibe, and Ainsley's still glued to the water with both hulls. Let's see this.
Hey, wait for the wait. Ah! What happened?
There you go.
Ah! What happened?
Look at that. From a half a boat length lead to 340 meters in about a minute's time. In just, the mistakes are so magnified here in this type of sailing.
And away fly the Kiwis as a result. As we've seen, the man to the right of your picture, Peter Burling, just seems entirely unflappable, Ken. Whenever we see him in shot, he's looking like he's out for a quiet little afternoon drive.
What's phenomenal is how little chatter we get. Everybody has the same microphones on all the different, on all the guys, and how little talk we hear coming off the New Zealand boat. We don't think they're fooling with their microphones. We just don't think they talk very much. I think Peter Burling is doing a lot of the actual tactics himself, so that communication that we hear between Charles Scott and Ben Ainsley and back and forth just simply isn't there as much on the New Zealand boat. But I mean, Ali, how do you imagine a one boat length lead turning into a half a leg lead in no time?
New Zealanders absolutely determined to make it pay as they round gate 2 and head upwind. They have been on their foils 100% of the time.
Which, let's go back to the last race and think about how much time those other two boats spent in the water. Now, the breeze is up about 1.5 knots, and that could be that trade-off, that kind of step that each of the boats need to be able to fly much more easily. But this is a bit of a clinic going on right here. And again, one bad jibe is all it took for Land Rover BAR.
Watching him in.
BAR on starboard right now. The giveaway boat is Emirates Team New Zealand.
And they're having to hurry. They're having to really hurry.
They're gonna, I'm guessing they're gonna push a button. There it is in the lower left-hand corner, a port starboard potentially.
That's the protest from the Brits against the path that the Kiwis took.
When you're Land Rover BAR, you're searching for any way to get back in the race. And if you're Emirates Team New Zealand, you're looking to avoid conflict like that. No penalty, no harm, no foul. But I'll tell you what, the Kiwis are going to go back and look at that and say, you know what, we didn't even need to make that close. We should have done something different. What exactly is due for interpretation? There's a big bear off, getting out of their way. But they got themselves in that spot in the first place. That's something that young Peter Burling is going to go back and look at it and say, you know what? We shouldn't have been there.
Okay, driving here.
Push the button, port starboard. Ainsley was on starboard. And now you see they're trying desperately to get the hulls back out of the water. A lot of what we looked at with Frank Camas in the last race, just trying to accelerate enough to get the hulls out of the water.
At some point we have to go H2.
Well, it's a nice position for the New Zealanders to be in. For Peter Burling to make an error like that and for it just not to matter at this point. They are so far out in front.
Fly time, I'm sure that New Zealand hasn't been 100% out of the water now, but it's 100% versus 66%. It's obviously very telling in its own right.
Slowly, steadily, painfully.
Yeah,
that was the word I was looking for.
That's
and that is the face of pain, right there. Just agonizingly frustrated to Ben Ainsley. The sigh telling you everything. Becalmed.
It's all about angles in these boats and setting yourself up for an angle. Deep angle coming into this mark. Couldn't get the hull out of the water, so the boat just wouldn't accelerate and
break open the chessboard. They're done. This race is over for them. And having put their campaign right back on track with that second victory over the Swedes, this will really sting.
You don't want to get in that man's way right now. That's not a happy crew, team, syndicate. Let's get it back together again. Let's learn something from this race. Let's try to get the thing out of the water and get it going. And hey, you never know.
Out in the distance, the New Zealanders, who are looking like the cast iron candidates at the moment to lay down the gauntlet to the defenders. Oracle Team USA, they are very, very composed in everything they're doing. They're minimizing their errors. They've got a couple of decisions across the course of the regatta, but look at the way they're maneuvering. It is different gravy.
We're talking about the lack of G-forces in light air. I'm not so sure that's the case on Emirates Team New Zealand. That was a bat turn going into that tack. Very impressive. Kept the hulls out of the water. That's what we keep talking about. I know we sound like a broken record, but if you're glued to the water, it's not going to happen for you.
Worth as well remembering the role of Glenn Ashby, who's tucked in there just in front of Peter Burling, and they seem to have been sharing duties very effectively. Ken, you spoke about, and we have relentlessly, haven't we, across the piece with Peter Burling looking so controlled. But one of the reasons for that almost certainly is that the pressure's being taken off him by Glenn Ashby.
And there he is. There's the man right there. And we constantly see him. We constantly see him just kind of tucked down inside that hole. He doesn't have a winch. He's got a little box in his hand. You can just see it. It's like he's a crane operator. And everybody low like that. You'll notice that Burling is always low. Everybody, because he doesn't have to stand up to see over anybody. So their windage has to be significantly better. Ashby's pretty good at this, by the way.
Get out here in this next puff.
Cruising to victory at the moment, Emirates Team New Zealand. Just making the most of that blunder from the British after the first mark. They'd set off so well, Great Britain.
Wait up, please.
In a second here, when both boats are on cue, you will be able to see, look at the difference in the shape of the boards. You have this big kink in the board of Emirates Team New Zealand, where you have more of a more conventional shape on board the Great British boat. Obviously something going on there, that real distinctive kink right there. It's very interesting, and they're obviously quite long, so a lot of lift, but you know, it's really one of the cool things to look at. It's one of the really few features on these boats that we can look at that really differentiates one team from the other, the design programs from the other, and certainly that extra length. And well, let's face it, that kink isn't hurting them right now. 26 knots of boat speed in 6.4 knots of wind speed, to give you a little idea. We've always heard of 4 times in there.
A little further, a little further. 2, 1.
I wasn't very good at math, but even my father would admit I could pull this one off right now 4 times.
Round they go.
They're not touching the water, Alan.
That's what's so impressive about it. The routine is well worn, and everybody knows exactly the moment to go, exactly the moment to move.
Nice round up, going down now. Yeah. Trim. Oh. Drop me down for the turn, turning out.
Let's go back down on the water here, Ali, to Joey Newton. Joey, this is
40 to boundaries.
exceptionally impressive at this stage. Would you agree?
It sure is, Ken. And I think what we're seeing is also a bit of a difference in foil design. The Brits have got smaller foils. The Kiwis have got foils that are just enormous. And that's, you know, the Kiwis had a better start. By all rights, they should have been able to roll Ben on that reach. And that's just because they had great big foils. They paid for a little bit on the reach, but the rest of the course, they've just been dominant. And the big foils are really paying off for them now.
Goodness gracious. Again, the difference is the Kiwi boat out of the water all the time. And as each time we've cut to the British boat, they're not. I mean, it's really, you don't have to be much of a sailor to understand.
Yeah, we're H1 here.
The British boat labouring at the moment.
Not yet, yeah.
There is a lonely sight.
Okay.
We're talking about H1 on board the boat. I've heard Ben say H1 several times. Joey, any idea what H1 would be in reference to?
No, my only guess would be it might be some sort of pre-planned move that they do at a mark, or it might be a reference to attack, dive, or something like that. I know in our team we have a bunch of different moves, and they've all got different names. Some of them, which I'm sure you've heard, some of them aren't really repeatable. So that's probably what he's talking about.
Okay, stand by. Okay, jibing.
So the course has been shortened yet again by the regatta director Ian Murray, so there will now only be 6 legs, and the Kiwis are hurtling towards it, Ken.
We will be coming downwind, so let's see. I've even lost which leg each guy is at. Down to gate 5, so he's going to do one more jibing in and finish at that final gate. The Brits got another lap to go here. This is sending a marker. Joey, this is telling the fleet that we're here to stay if you're a Kiwi at this stage.
Yeah, they certainly look pretty good, Ken. Their foil design, like I was talking about before, for this wind speed, you know, they've hit the sweet spot. Whether, you know, you're looking at BAR and their foils look motored for a little bit more breeze, so they're caught out. Yeah, the Kiwis are certainly pretty impressive in this breeze.
The bikers biking, the boat's out of the water all the time, the windage down low.
Trying to rock to that righty, and then we'll foil tack on lane.
You hear Burling talking about going out for a right. I do think, you know, we should ask him at some stages. He comes from the 49er class, dinghy sailing with Blair Tuke, his partner in the dinghy, in the 49er dinghy. They just won a gold medal, and they're used to doing tactics themselves, you know, in this dinghy style sailing, where a lot of us have been used to having.
They don't spare the horses on the turn, do they? My goodness.
They keep the boat out of the water.
But the speed of it is noticeably different, Ken, to pretty much all the other crews, isn't it? The manner in which they maneuver.
Well, they're throwing it through the tack so fast that they're keeping it out of the water, obviously, and then they're avoiding that whole painful build process of trying to gain enough speed to pop it. So obviously what they lose in the turn is more, exponentially more made up for in the long run. Back down to 6.5 knots of boat speed. Even Emirates Team New Zealand doesn't keep the hull out of the water in that thing, but they're still flying the weather hull. They're sailing a little bit of a displacement mode at this stage, back and forth. They're avoiding those huge turns, those huge acceleration moments, or attempted acceleration moments, that others have not been able to avoid.
So they are through the final gates and they are heading for the finish line. The Kiwis sailing a wonderful race.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go. Good now. So with the boats, kind of going in bizarre directions. Here's the Kiwis coming onto the Brits, one full lap ahead.
Can they catch
not
them?
One full.
Probably just too far to catch.
3/4 of a lap ahead. It's a sight we haven't seen.
Let's finish at the bottom here.
We're on board. That's Burling talking to his group right now. We're finishing at the bottom. So this is their final leg. There's the last leg. Ainsley still's got one more loop to go.
Well, they're a highly motivated team, needless to say. The New Zealanders, the beaten challengers in 2013, remember, from that seemingly impregnable position of 8-1 up. Peter Burling and the rest of his crew will be absolutely desperate to right that wrong, to put things straight, put New Zealand sailing right back on top of the world.
It just looks solid. There's nothing more to say. He's not praying. He's actually up forward right now, actually keeping the weight forward, so not grinding and keeping the weight forward. I'm not sure which crew member that is.
But do you think they might have played spoof for that position? Because that has to be the most comfortable of them all.
Yeah, but boys, I'm going to take a little nap. I'll be back in a few minutes.
I'll go. Weight distribution, that's me.
They've thought this through, though. Just the fact that they did take a person out of the weather hull and slid them all the way forward. You see Burling doing what Dean Barker did in the earlier race. They're keeping their weight out of the back of the boat at that critical time, keeping it on the foil. Oh, goodness gracious. Running around the front of the wing as they go through that jibing maneuver, that foil jibing maneuver, and obviously into the finish line.
Don't be confused with the British boat going in the other direction. It is the Kiwis who are approaching that finish line with their job done and a masterful display today. Peter Burling leading this very high-class operation, an exceptional race from the Kiwis, a performance to strike a degree of trepidation, I would suggest, into the rest of the fleet. In total control after that first mark. And New Zealand delivering a real kick in the guts to Sir Ben Ainslie and Land Rover BAR.
Yeah. Let's finish on the stay. You just go on.
We're going to have a hard time finding fault in that race. Maybe a little bit of a timing if they probably had the ability to pull the trigger a little earlier in the pre-start, in the start, leading up to this, going over the start line. But all in all, goodness gracious.
A 6th win of the regatta for Emirates Team New Zealand. The voice you're able to hear is that of Ben Ainslie.
Tack over and head towards the start box. Tacking.
chase 4. We're not pushing this race.
Fully in displacement mode. I mean, it doesn't look like they're even trying to get the hull out of the water at this stage, like we saw from the Kiwis, and you know, could be a problem. Could be a problem with the boat. They might have an issue. You never know. Long ways to go. A lot of smart people in this camp.
Race committee, Land Rover BAR.
Let's listen in. So Ben Ainsley looking to get hold of the race committee, suggesting their challenge
Race committee,
is over.
Land Rover BAR.
So this will be the first time that this has happened here in Bermuda. Can't even get hold of the right man. Such is the frustration.
Here we go.
Go ahead, Land Rover BAR.
Race committee, just to inform you, we're retiring from this race. Over.
Pretty unequivocal. A retirement for Land Rover BAR. And
thank you, Land Rover.
heading back to shore.
Well, not
metaphorically with tails between legs.
Well, not to shore. They got another race to go. We have France against GBR in the last race today, so these guys still got some work cut out for them.
Yeah, one race between then and now. USA will take on Japan, and in the meantime, we can grab a word with Peter Burling with any luck. And we'll do that in just a moment's time before we've dissected the race itself. Kenny.
There's nothing really to say.
I think we know what happened there.
Yeah.
Everything hinging on that bad jibe just after the first mark from Great Britain, and the Kiwis just headed off into the distance.
Speed difference and stability difference, obviously being able to fly amazing maneuvers, radical course changes in their maneuvers, kept the Kiwis boat out of the water the whole time, and as we saw, the GBR boat struggled to get out of the water. So, I mean, really a tale of two completely different boats.
So, Peter Burling, helmsman on board Emirates Team New Zealand. Peter, that was very comprehensive. Is that as well as you've sailed out here so far? Peter, can you hear me?
You can relay the questions through the other radio if you want.
I wonder if he can pick up
We can hear
the question here. Peter, shall I try again? Is that as well as you guys have sailed since you've been out here in Bermuda?
I can't hear anything. That's what I've been saying the whole time.
Okay, we'll try and sort that out and get the thoughts of Peter Burling another time, but a commanding display from Emirates Team New Zealand. And here's how it all unfolded.
Really, the only blemish in this race for Emirates Team New Zealand was probably getting off the start line. Certainly, Land Rover BAR, they looked pretty solid. Maybe a slight tick off the pace, but that was probably an angle difference into that first mark. But Emirates Team New Zealand got around the outside, and here's the jibe. This is kind of the beginning of the end for the Great Britain squad. We heard the massive frustration and Ben Ainsley's voice. Let's watch. And when it's this light a breeze, you just can't afford those big dips, and that all of a sudden it went from an even race to hundreds of meters apart, and it got worse. Look at some of these tacks, these radical turns, keeping the boat unbelievably out of the water. Now, is that the fact? Is that their systems? Is that their techniques? Is that their foil shapes? Is that how they pump the fluid through the boat, the hydraulic fluid? The answer is all of the above. Just a very impressive contest for Emirates Team New Zealand.
So a fifth defeat here for Land Rover BAR as we move on to the next race. It's race number 6. It's the third of the day. It is the defenders, Jimmy Spithill's Oracle Team USA against Dean Barker's SoftBank Team Japan, and helmsman Spitthill hoping to show their superiority today over their design partners.
We're going up against the exact same boat, really. But as always, the techniques can really separate, you know, the boats in terms of performance. So I think both of us will be trying a few different things in terms of technique, and we'll both hopefully walk away with a couple of lessons.
Well, Oracle Team USA crushed the French a couple days ago, and that was with a broken boat. A part of the wing twist mechanism failed, and according to tactician Tom Slingsby, they backed off around the second half of the racetrack. Well, if teams can only limp at the same speed that Oracle's produced in these light to medium conditions, they would probably be doing just fine. Jimmy Spithill knows Dean Barker very well, and this could be a great race to watch, even in light air.
A rather less convincing start to the qualifying proceedings from the Japanese, off the water for a couple of days, but prior to that, just 2 wins against the British and the French, but starting the day with an excellent victory over France yet again in the opening race of the day. By their own standards out here, yes, I think they will feel that they've been underperforming, but that victory in race 1 this afternoon will have raised morale. And let's have a little look at how they line up for their second race of the afternoon.
Well, yeah, for Dean Barker, I mean, they entered the day tied for the least amount of wins of anybody. Now, they win 2 races today, and all of a sudden they're right in the hunt for the top spot. So it's amazing how fortunes can change. They sailed pretty well in that first race. They weren't out of the water nearly as much as Emirates Team New Zealand were, but in comparison to France, that was quite a trouncing in the race 1 of our day here today.
So USA against Japan, and an opportune moment to bring in Joey Newton, part of the Oracle Team USA crew here in Bermuda. Joey, how do you see this one shaking out?
Well, this should be a good one, Ali. Like Jimmy was saying in the interview before, these packages are nearly identical. There's a couple of little tiny changes, but for all intents and purposes, they're the same boat. So it's going to come down to the guys sailing them and the technique. And I'd expect some fireworks in the start with Dean and Jimmy. I mean, the gloves come off when these 2 race, so hopefully we'll have a fantastic race in front of us.
So tiny changes, how do you guys monitor that stuff? How does that work? If the teams are sharing technology, do they choose to kind of go off on their own, or do you choose to go off on your own? How does that work, Joey?
Well, a bit of both, Ken. I mean, we're separate teams. We don't have the same management by any means. So they make their own decisions, we make our own decisions. They have their own head designer, we have our own head designer. So there are differences in edges, there's differences in foils, cutters, set up our wings and the boats. So they make their own bed, sleep in it. We're exactly the same.
In technique, in a battle of technique, when you guys have raced in this lighter air before, who we putting our money on right now? If we're heading off to Vegas, if you're Joey Newton, who are you putting your money on?
Tough question for me, given that I'm part of Oracle.
Oh, no, come on. You can be as neutral as possible here amongst friends. Nobody's listening.
I think I've got my money on Oracle, but like I said, it's going to be tough, and the breeze is going to play a big part of it. It's super puffy and super shifty, and you guys were saying before, these boats that can do 4 times the wind speed, so in a not extra wind speed, you get this incremental, substantial jump in the boat speed, and that's why the big differences really glare out when the breeze is light.
So we are in a bit of a postponement here on the water to possibly wait for a bit of a tweak to the course, or maybe a hair of wind speed. We're not exactly sure sometimes. So we will patiently wait a few minutes and hopefully get this race off.
Well, we're going to take you back now to race 13 of the first round robin, as Sir Ben Aisley's Land Rover BAR took on the French. Frank Camas had been struggling coming into this cup, starting late and with the smallest budget in the fleet, quite the opposite to his British opponents. Was this a case of David and Goliath? Let's take a little look at how the drama unfolded. It's the opening race of the day. Great Britain against France, and the dogfight, Ken, well underway.
The dogfight is well underway. You see the starting line way up in the box, way up high, and these guys are actually very early for the starting line. Frank Camas is very early, so you're seeing Great Britain, Ben Ainslie, going for what's called a hook maneuver. He's going to go down and at least push France as hard as he can toward the line and try to get them committed early or down below that lay line. This is the pushing and hooking maneuver that he's trying to go for, ripping in from behind and then trying to get himself overlapped. At worst, they're going to be early. You know, that's the thing that Ainslie's trying to do. At best, and actually attack by Groupama right there. They know they're early. They're really in trouble. They've been set up in trouble for this entire last 40 seconds because they were just too close to the line. They're going to end up starting well behind Ainslie when after the starting gun goes.
So a masterful display in the pre-start from Sir Ben Ainslie and Land Rover BAR. They are off to a flyer. They will cross the line with a fair distance between themselves and the French right at the outset. Really important day for both of these boats. Not had things go their own way for the most part, but a real opportunity to stamp some authority on proceedings this afternoon as they fly across the water. And the British already approaching 40 knots.
Going to be about 30 away after Mark 1.
Ainsley certainly just, he kind of picked on a tough move by Frank Camas. When he circled around and started back toward the line, that early, that close, you're really asking. It's kind of a recipe for disaster. And Ben was... he was not merciful in his approach.
I'm not sure Ben has ever been merciful in his approach on the water. No. Maybe in his private life, I hope so for his sake, but certainly when it comes to the sailing, it is a ruthless streak that he possesses, and he is making it count here this afternoon. The French already playing catch-up in a fairly sizable fashion.
What we're looking at here with the French now is stability. They showed much better stability yesterday on the foils during their maneuvers in the lighter conditions. That could have been a different set of foils. It could be technique. It could be software within the boat. This is a telling sign right now. Not a bad jibe, not perfect, but not a bad jibe, foil to foil. I got to tell you, they do look more stable out there right now, but it's early times in this race.
Tremendous speed right from the outset from the British crew. And the grinders hard at work, of course, yet again, as they try to generate all the hydraulic power for the rest of this boat to be shifted. But the British are screaming around the course, and they round gate 2 and head upwind for the first time in the race.
Look very sharp so far, very comfortable, stable. It's easy for us to say here in the booth, you know, it's blowing hard. It's blowing 16, 17 knots right now. The instability of Groupama comes back, but they bail out of it pretty quickly. The key there is to not get really slow and have to do that big speed build after it's fat. They decided not to do a split at that bottom mark, so they're going to kind of try to keep it close here in the early parts of this race, and see what happens. See if Ainsley makes a mistake.
Yeah, I've got him.
Ainsley says he's got him, which means he's got control. They're likely going to cross.
Tacking.
Not the smoothest.
No, but they're not. They're inside that overlap. They're going to tack. He didn't think he was going to cross. Let's see if Groupama can get around the outside. Ainsley has the inside overlap, but can he get around the outside? Incredible turn of events right there. I really thought Ainsley was going to cross well ahead and decided at the last minute to splash down, stop it, and Groupama, another pass. Really incredible turn of events right there.
CJ, can we? Might be a soaking lay with the board, guys.
Soaking lay with the board. Take the depth, please, if we can.
Sir Ben Ainslie and Land Rover BAR just chasing down the French.
Can we split?
We've got room here, stand by jibe.
Proper drag race at the moment.
Proper drag race.
Okay, jibing.
We will create that split. Groupama will go straight in. Ainsley will cut across to this side. Not his best jibe with that lured hull in the water.
Not his best jibe, not the cleanest of turns from Groupama Team France either. So, again, neck and neck, level pegging.
26, the lay line, the boundary.
Yeah, keep it calm, John.
Such a balancing act, isn't it? Trying to make sure that everything is in the right position to the point where the hulls are well clear of the water.
And another slow tack by Ainsley right there. Both boats put both hulls down that time. If you're behind, you cannot afford to make a mistake, and that lured hull is still in the water right now, and they're struggling to get back up to speed. Only going 14 knots, Groupama is going 24.
Big disparity in pace currently, and the French beginning to open up a handy advantage.
Again, they just that one mistake, and we keep bringing this up throughout all the races so far. That one mistake can cost hundreds of meters of distance, and just one bad tack by Land Rover BAR right there, and all of a sudden things are very different on the race course. I don't think anybody saw this coming.
Well, they are proving something of a surprise package here in Bermuda. Groupama Team France still flying across the top of the water and heading downwind for the final time in the race, and they are plunging into the water. The nosedive is not a good look, but they have a pretty hefty lead at this point.
Yeah, they got too high coming out of that mark. We've seen the British team do that on occasion as well. A lot of times people think the big crash down, that splash, that plunge is because the boat gets too low. It actually is just the opposite. The boat gets too high, it loses control, the foil cavitates, and it very rapidly plunges down, giving a quick early afternoon shower to the troops.
Sir Ben Ainsley is light years behind in real terms as they head for the final gate. Groupama Team France, really the story of the America's Cup so far. Their defiance in the face of all expectations. This, a very slick maneuver as they head to the finish line. Frank Camas is pulling it out of the bag.
Ripping across Great Sound right now with one quick little reach to the finish. Again, with the finish line for those people here at the dockyard, it's literally probably a good solid pitching wedge from the front porch. Go through that starting line and put the brakes on fast, because there's only trouble that lurks on the other side, which is rocks and a beach and maybe somebody's patio. Incredible.
Well, it is a wonderful story. They have been up against it. They arrived here with, I think, low expectations from most aficionados. We saw what it meant to the French supporters when they came through to beat the Swedes. Real emotion etched on the faces of their fans that day. But here, confirmation that they are genuine contenders. They are right in the mix here in the America's Cup qualifiers. And they have put the Brits to the sword.
This is another look in the mirror moment for the Brits. You know, with only one win in the whole series, Groupama now with 2. The Japanese with another race to come this afternoon with a chance of getting to 2. Look in the mirror moment, and here these guys come ripping across the finish line.
It's a win for Frank Camas and the French team, and not just a win, a tremendous victory that will mean so much in edging out Land Rover BAR. They've taken them to the cleaners here today, and they have told the rest of the fleet that they are here to stay. big, big victory. So the news here from the Great Sound in Bermuda is that the wind has dipped beneath the magical 6-knot mark, the average wind speed that is. So no racing at the moment. As you can see, USA against Japan, which is the next up on the schedule, has been postponed for the time being. So let's bring in Joey Newton, who is out on the water for us today, part of Oracle Team USA. Joey, very noticeable out there that the wind has dropped away.
Yeah, Ali, after that last race finished, there was a little dip in the breeze, and there's a 30-second window that the Ian Murray on the race committee boat observes. If the breeze dips below, on average, 6 knots at all in that 30 seconds, then he'll postpone the race, and that's what we saw there. The breeze looks pretty good as I look upwind in the Great Sound, so hopefully we'll have a race away in the next 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, that's good to know, Joey. Thank you very much. A positive outlook is what we're all about. But in the meantime, we're going to go back to that controversial race that we showed you the start of a little time ago. Race 14 of the first round-robin stage. It was Sweden and Nathan Outridge against New Zealand and Peter Burling. And we're going to pick it up as they round gate 2, heading into leg 3.
Go, boys. Go, boys. Anytime.
So we're going to have another quick look at the start. This is where the penalty came, of course.
The New Zealanders really went down there. What Sweden did very well is they got down, it's called the ley line. They got really deep and kind of pinned New Zealand down. 6 seconds to go, and you see him start to turn toward the line. Don't turn yet, don't turn yet. And oh, over by inches. Now, for us sitting here, it's really difficult to see, but it is absolutely GPS within a couple inches of what the umpires see in the box. So that is not a human eye that's doing that. That's actually done technologically. So we're pretty sure that is very, very accurate.
It would have to be, because the margins are so tiny.
That was, not to sound like an American, but that was inches.
BMG, boys. Good one, forming top right.
Now we'll see 2 different strategies here. On deck, the wing trimmer actually has a winch and a rope in his hand. The wing trimmer, if we get on Emirates Team New Zealand at some stage, is actually sitting below deck, looking to, we don't know what the controls look like, but apparently kind of fiddling around with hydraulic controls all the time and not having that rope and that winch.
Turn.
Just incredible shots, aren't they?
Yeah, not the smoothest, but they're not slow either. They're right in the hunt. Nobody's pulling out. Nobody's dropping back here, as you would expect from these kind of 2 heavyweights.
They don't like it.
Artemis going 34 knots upwind.
2 and in left.
That's fast.
Take it up when you can. Body down.
The Swedes making a really good fist of their chase here, finding a lot of speed up.
One race.
Consistently, as we look at those speeds, consistently 2 or 3 knots faster. Now, are there angles as tight as Team New Zealand's? Team New Zealand looked to be struggling going into. That was a very uncharacteristic slow turn. Box in Glenn Ashby's hand right there, down right in this area. It's like he's playing a video game with hydraulic controls. That's twist, that's in and out. That's fascinating. That's the first time we've seen that control box in his hand. He's always down low in the cockpit, and that's how he's controlling not just the in and out of the wing, but the twist, the camber and the actual twist of the wing. Very interesting. And we got a real race on our hands here all of a sudden after that one bad tack by the Kiwis.
And the 2 boats on collision course here as well.
40, 50, 60 knot closing
Ley
speed
line
there.
coming up. 10 seconds.
You do not want to be the meat in that sandwich.
60. Swedes are going quick. They're on average going 30 knots all the time upwind, which is a number that we're not quite used to. Now, Christian Camp, are you used to going 30 knots upwind? Is this a standard number for you guys?
Yeah, that's kind of the numbers we've been seeing the last year or so with these efficient foils. So that's pretty standard in this breeze, to be honest. There's obviously, like you said, a bit of angle in it as well. But it's an interesting situation coming up at the top mark now. Artemis dipped last time they met, and they're coming in on starboard now, very similar to the BAR Groupama race. It'll be interesting to see what happens up here in this intersection.
But below the ley line, and New Zealand got across barely before.
Yeah, I think Artemis can wind it up onto ley line if they want to.
I see. So they're kind of coming down and trying to play a little possum here going into the top gate. The Kiwis do a nice job of slowing down so they can still make the other side. So that's that was very good strategy for both teams.
Good pressure, not long the ley line.
So a dramatic race ongoing, but we are lucky enough to be able to show you a live race now between the USA and Japan. Jimmy Spithill against Dean Barker, and the Americans, of course, the defenders, the pace setters. The wind has picked up just a little bit, and they'll be keen, the defenders, to hammer home that advantage that they have, or at least that they had at the top of the qualifiers table. The Kiwis, with their victory over the British, of course, have gone level on 6 points. A bonus point on offer, remember, for whoever comes out on top. And if that is the Americans, they can carry that forward into the match itself.
Story of the day, 6.5 knots. We see in our lower right-hand corner there, 6.5 knots out of the southwest. Oracle was late getting into the box, and here comes a hunt. Here comes our first good hunt of this event. And I will explain to you a little bit more in a second here, but essentially Oracle, who has the 10-second advantage coming in on port tack, that's made so they can clear across the starboard tack boat and avoid this situation.
Back.
I wonder if we go back, we find out, have they even gone into the entry? I don't think so. Japan did. Oracle has not entered the starting box yet.
So Jimmy Spithill's USA against Dean Barker's Japan, race number 6 of the second round robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. These two great helmsmen head to head, and the cat and mouse, a very intriguing one. There's already a penalty for the Americans, Ken.
A penalty because they were very late coming into the start box. Dean Barker on starboard tack came in and actually forced them to turn head to wind towards the wind away from the start box. They didn't get in on time. They haven't even gotten into the start box yet. They're going to have to start the race 2 boat lengths behind. That was really interesting. And again, we see how hard it is to accelerate in this lighter condition, because you just don't know if you're going to be up. Dean Barker's going after him again right now. Try to keep him out of the starting box.
Well, it's dog eat dog.
10 seconds to go. Dean Barker's going to be launched at this start because he's up on his foils and going. Oracle's going to burn off their penalty right away, but they got to figure out how to accelerate from a very awkward spot.
And this is what the Japanese have been doing almost every race. Away to a flyer, 25 knots as they hit the start line. And the Americans, well, the penalty is gone, but so too are the Japanese.
Wow. Penalty was immediately burned off, but they're so high up on the box there. We'll go back and watch that, I'm sure, again. They just couldn't accelerate. They couldn't put the bow up toward the wind and actually build that apparent wind speed in order to get the boat going. So here, finally, they get going, and as we've seen in these races, you can lose and gain quite a bit on one bad maneuver. So I don't think this group here on the Japanese boat think this race is over by any means.
Just hitting some form though. SoftBank Team Japan, and well clear as they hit Mark 1, heading downwind for the first time in the race. The Americans, well, they've been talking quite a bit about the need to sharpen up their starts. They've been doing a very good job of clawing back leads, overhauling their opponents. But they are well behind already.
Okay, real good pressure here.
A little concentration from each of the drivers in the boat. You see the difference, both of them sitting up on top or standing up, the versus what we saw with Team New Zealand with everybody crouching down. The wing trimmer up in the air, much more of a conventional setup on both of these two boats, if there's anything conventional about these boats. I'm not 100% sure.
So two great helmsmen, of course, the two who went head-to-head in the most dramatic America's Cup finish ever back in 2013 in San Francisco. The Americans back from 8-1 down against the Kiwis, led by Barker back then, in what is widely regarded as the most remarkable sporting comeback in history. As we see the jibe from the Americans.
Smooth. Very, very smooth.
You want to go a little low mode or normal?
Normal.
Let's hear from Joey Newton, a part of the USA team here involved for us on the water. Joey, you were involved 4 years ago in that drama. Can you just give us a little bit of an insight into this brilliant rivalry between Spithill and Barker?
Take a bit off.
Well, it's actually been going on for longer than that. Jimmy and Barker have been sailing against each other for probably the best part of 20 years. And that sort of culminated in the last Cup where obviously they're 8-1 down. We managed to win 8 straight and retain the America's Cup. So now they're great friends. I wouldn't have called them great friends at the end of that last America's Cup. But it's been interesting to see the two of them and a lot of the Team New Zealand guys that now work for SoftBank Team Japan, how they've come to sort of start working together with people that were their enemies.
It's a fascinating dynamic, isn't it, in such a kind of sharp-elbowed sport to actually have a friendship and a rivalry simultaneously. It's a tricky little balance, I would suggest, to try to maintain that.
Yeah, it is, Ali, and it's been interesting to see it sort of evolve as these two teams have grown. But you know, yachting in a professional sense is actually a pretty small sport, and it's a pretty small group of people that do this professionally. So, you know, we've known Dean and his guys the same way we know all the guys on Team New Zealand or the British team. We know them all. We're all good friends with each other. You know, we're happy to have a beer with each other, but that all sort of stops when the race starts.
And that is absolutely how it should be. Japanese maintaining this lead at the moment. How are you seeing this, Kenny?
Well, nothing in it, really. That lead has kind of been maintained by the Japanese at this stage, but both boats clearly sailing well, sailing stable. Japanese have been out of the water 100% of the time, but it doesn't mean that the Americans haven't actually clawed back a little bit. Nobody's had to do that massive dip speed build yet. They both maintained being out of the water for the most part, although I say that, and it looks like the Japanese are a little glued right now, and they better get going because Oracle's coming on fast. Speed differences are amazing. You notice that if you're going to look at these two wings and against the wingtips below, that one and that one are virtually identical. Now, supposedly you can put different tips on from day to day or different experiment, and that might just be the very end of that unit. But for the most part, these are really similar packages. And technique, this is the technique race, because if you got similar packages, then technique is inevitably going to be the balance of power for one versus the other.
So around about 100 meters as Oracle Team USA pass in behind SoftBank Team Japan, and again, the weight distribution is something that the Americans are concerned with, seemingly.
Yeah, that's tactician Tom Slingsby, all the way out, not all the way out on the front of that, on the front of the hull, but certainly well further forward than he typically is.
Okay, let's stand by. I want to go a little early. Stay in the pressure. Okay. Trim, big trim. Happy? 4, 3, 2, 1.
Got it. Sorry.
Press, big press. Spill, guys.
That wasn't the sharpest of tacks from Oracle Team USA, but the recovery was a good one, and interesting to hear the sorry from Jimmy Spithill. He's taking responsibility for any little dip of the hull.
The ugh and then the sorry. I'm not sure exactly who said sorry, but somebody said sorry. It doesn't take much, and they all know the consequences of plowing the boat in and getting slow and getting those 2 holes in the water, the consequences are massive. Now, even with that bad tack, this is a very close race. Again, 2 very similar packages, meaning how they use the wings above and below the deck. The headsails are exactly identical. It's one of the features of this America's Cup that all the headsails are one design, so they don't have any choice there. Big moment. Will Dean Barker make that left side of the gate?
He looks to be on track.
Can he get around that mark? Because if he can get around that mark, then he won't have to do another tack. And we know tacking and jibing is awfully slow out here right now. And it looks like he's going to make it pretty easily and be able to accelerate, and the yo-yo extends. You know, you start going, he'll start going away pretty quick, about 7 or 8 knots faster, downwind than upwind.
Yeah. 25 to boundary. Your cat's in here, mate. Holding at 20 to boundary. No deeper, no deeper. Ready to go.
Give a good team a lead, and a good team should be able to hold it, you know, and
Like to get rudder equalise on the exit
Japan's
of
looking
this.
like a good team out here today. 1 win already notched on their belt, and they're looking for 2. And I tell you what, 2 wins, all of a sudden they're on 4.
Yeah, let's just keep going.
They're on 4 overall points, same as BAR. Well ahead of Artemis in France. Quite a day, but like I said, 1 bad tack, 1 bad jibe, and this disappears in a heartbeat.
So a battle of wills, a battle of techniques, a battle of helmsmen.
If we got pressure, I think we should use a normal rudder swap.
Dean Barker relishing the competition.
Okay, copy, mate.
Won the America's Cup with Team New Zealand 17 years ago. Took the helm for the final race. Russell Coutts made way.
Yeah, yeah.
And since then, he has been involved in so many skirmishes since. There's the chase from the Americans. Not too far behind, and as Ken keeps mentioning, all it is one, maybe even one very small error.
And look at the profiles again. They could be potentially absolutely identical. What Joey Newton on the water, who's part of the Oracle Team USA team, obviously was saying there are some nuance. There is a little bit of differences, as they are different programs per se, but for the most part, they look pretty darn similar to me. Slingsby goes from leaning on the front beam upwind to hopping on a bicycle and pumping like a madman downwind.
So that's the hybrid, the only team in the fleet to operate both the cyclore style grinding and the more traditional style.
Joey, not a shock to see these 2 teams right now with pretty much attached with a string.
Yeah, that's right, Ken. Like we were talking about before, they're super similar packages and they go about the same speed. The difference that we see on the racecourse here is the difference in the unforced error we saw Team USA make in the start there by being late to their entry, and they're still paying for it now.
And
Way forwards, guys.
it's interesting that Oracle Team USA decided to do 2 jibes there. We know how costly those jibe maneuvers are. And there they are going pretty slow, 15 knots. They didn't just decide to follow them in, do 1 jibe and in there, but on the other side of the coin, they're going to get a split and maybe have a little wind shift to take advantage of out there.
Gonna make some pitch here, boys. Nice. How far? 25.
As far as nuance is concerned, you know, these guys are talking about not only do the dagger boards go fore and aft and up and down and back and forth, side to side, but the rudders move around. I believe, and Joey, talk to us about this. Well, let's listen for a second.
If we got pressure, I think we could use a normal rudder.
He's talking about normal rudder. We got some pressure. We're talking about normal rudder angles. Joey, what are these guys talking about out here? Because this is terminology that the sailing world hasn't heard before. What's a normal rudder angle?
But they're either talking about the feel of the rudder to the helmsman, so how much wing trim they're using, and windward and leeward helm. So the helmsman will be talking to the wing trimmer about how he's setting up the wing to make the boat feel differently for him. And also they can be talking about the rudders can be set at different angles, and that affects the lift at the back of the boat. So they could be talking about the way the rudders are set there.
Keep pressing, Dino.
Only 80 meters in between it, so Oracle forced that split at the bottom gate.
Seems to be paying off. Fast all the time.
It wasn't paying off early on. They lost quite a bit doing those 2 extra jives, but all of a sudden, this is an even boat race. Fascinating.
Well, battle is joined at this point, isn't it? No question about it. And when they split that gate, Ken, just again to explain for those who might not be terribly familiar with it, they're essentially rolling the dice to some degree to see if they can hunt for a little bit of extra wind up the other side of the course.
You're the boat behind, and at some stage you throw caution to the wind, and being behind by a small amount or a large amount doesn't matter. You're behind. Behind is behind. A loss is a loss.
Got him just not laying. What we're going to be going for
this is incredible. This is something we've seen from the Japanese now on several races where solid, good leads have evaporated very, very quickly. And here we go again.
Actually, happy VMG. VMG is good.
Really something. Joey, that was a huge turn of events. Wind shift, boat speed, technique, combination of all the above.
I think that was just wind speed.
We're going to be going for the
it was a pretty big risk that Oracle took, but look, at this point in the race, you've got to roll the dice. And Jimmy and Tom made a good call to go to a different mark. They paid a penalty to do it, but as you see, you get a little bit more wind speed in these boats, and they just rocket ahead.
Well, we keep hearing it, don't we? Fortune favours the brave in these boats.
Okay, good pressure.
We've heard it from so many different helmsmen. If you try and drive these things cautiously, you get caught out. You've got to go at full tilt. You've got to give it everything.
Yep, going for the cross.
Best tack right now, going for a cross. This is a big moment.
High build, we want to lay, have to lay.
Big moment in the race. The Japanese got a little puff. Could they get up to him on starboard? It certainly doesn't look like it. And now Oracle has to lay. They don't want to have to tack again. You heard Slingsby say, we got to lay. That means they have to get through this gate without having to do another maneuver. Wow, what a change. My goodness, what a turn of events that was.
Hats off to the Americans as they round Gate 5. Downwind for one final time for Oracle Team USA and Jimmy Spithill. Another masterclass in working their way back from a rather perilous position early on in the race.
Unlike a lot of the passes we've seen in this event so far that have just become very obvious, plaster the boat into the water in this light air, kind of gluing the 2 hulls to the water, not being able to go. There was nothing blatantly obvious there, so that really tells you what Joey said. That was very likely either wind pressure or a big wind angle change. And boy, oh boy, it went from a reasonably solid Japanese lead to just a thrashing.
Both equal, okay? Happy. 3, 2, 1.
Incredibly frustrating. I mean, listen, we've all been there. I've been there probably more times than not. And you're through, like you said, rolling the dice if you're Tom Slingsby at that bottom gate, and all of a sudden 0 to hero. It's pretty amazing.
Well, they're really enjoying the wind speed here as well. The Americans beginning to fly 25 knots.
Finishing at the bottom, okay? No reach at the moment.
And the finishing line not too far away.
Can you just double check that on your display, Langers? Saying finishing at the bottom? Okay, it says 10 seconds to a lay. Let's stand by.
Little confused on board the boat right there. Whether there's one more reach leg in, that conventional reach into the finish.
You definitely want to make sure you know where the tape is.
Well, they'll go through it anyway, but I heard Slingsby saying, I don't think there's a reach, but I'm pretty sure we think there's a reach.
Yeah, no issues.
That's what we understand. There's the finish line. It's back to the old school runway of the opening few days here in Bermuda. And the Americans are flying towards it at great speed and with great confidence, knowing that they're going to pull clear of the fleet once again with another victory here.
Just in 2 seconds.
Looks like he put his bicycle seat up in the air a little bit so he can
just
see
keep going
better.
to the
Did you see
finish
that?
just in case.
I mean, he's been down low
Pretty sure he said
when it's windy.
Race committee, did you say finishing at the bottom, Mark?
Oracle, finish at the dock. Finish at the dock.
Okay, continuing on. Continuing straight.
So the voice is that of Ian Murray, just confirming that they do need to reach across wind to the finish.
We keep on the foil.
Like any good relationship, the key is communication. Alan?
Hit it, guys, hit it.
Well, what a race from the Americans. The Japanese, who had such an excellent start, and they really did look as if they were in the box seat.
Shocker, really.
Race is run at this point. The defenders.
These guys are going to be really mad at this race. Mark my words.
They had it in their grasp. It was there to be taken. And it's been stolen from underneath their noses. Great bit of sailing from the Americans. Tactically very astute.
Big light,
sometimes you need a little bit of luck.
That bow down trim for aerodynamics, for grip on the weather rudder, using the wings or what they call the elevators on the rudder on the high side of the boat to grip this rudder right here. That actually is pulling the windward side down and actually creating more of what we call righting moment in our sport, allowing you to power up the sail plan that much more.
Well, a roll of the dice on leg 5, upwind. It has paid off in spades for the Americans. They found the wind in their favor, and they have notched up yet another victory. It's their 6th here in Bermuda, and the defenders are firing on all cylinders.
Remarkable race, really. The closest race we've seen, a couple passes, 2 well-sailed boats, and just out of sync for a couple minutes there by the SoftBank Team Japan.
Sorry, boys.
There's Chris Draper. There you go, putting your hand up. That's the sign of a leader. Tactician putting his hand up, saying, sorry, boys. Again, we've all been there. I always think that's the key part of the race for any leadership group, the afterguard, to put up their hand and say, my bad.
Very difficult for the Japanese crew to compute that defeat because they got off to such a flyer. And of course, they were looking to build on that victory over the French in the opening race of the day. So they're very much the tail of the tape. The Japanese with that wonderful start and then reeled in.
Massively, big unforced error by the Oracle Team USA squad, not actually getting into the starting box on time, being really effectively stuffed out by the Japanese, but they hung in there. There's the key. No big deltas there. They just hung in there and waited for their chance to pounce.
So let's get the views of Jimmy Spithill, the helmsman on board Oracle Team USA. Jimmy, again, congratulations. He seems to be racing at almost capacity out there at the moment. What a change for you on that upwind leg, on leg 5. You rolled the dice and it paid off for you.
Yeah, Tommy did a great job just keeping us in the race there. We, on our entry to the start, we just got caught in the light spot, couldn't hook up, and we're in big trouble. But in some ways, good to happen now. I mean, the boys really kept their composure, and Tommy got us right back into the race. And as you can see, it's never over in these boats.
So keeping it close, that was the key. I'm sure if you had that acceleration into the start box back, you'd do it a little bit different. But keeping it close, and the delta was never more than 20 seconds, which is actually remarkable in the races we've seen today. Then how do you make that decision? Because that double jibe at going into that bottom gate, that hasn't paid off for the most part in this lighter breeze. How could you possibly even imagine doing that?
Well, it was actually something Tommy talked about before the race. He really liked the bottom right out of that gate. So we, as it set up, the Japanese allowed us to split and let us go. If they had sort of jibed in front of us, so that probably would have been the race. But, great call by Tommy and for the boys, just staying in there and fighting away. It's never over.
Now it looks like he lifted his bicycle seat up. I mean, this is a very important thing that we're checking out from a windage standpoint. It looks like he has like a big boy seat back there behind you to look up over your head. What's going on back there? Is that a comfort thing?
Yeah, it's, we've got the BMX working really nicely now, and
you got the Allen keys out, Jimmy.
We've developed this amazing hybrid system, so it's it's working very nicely.
Good stuff. Well, congratulations, a great victory yet again, and the USA extending their lead at the top of the standings in the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. They have 7 points now, with the Kiwis on 6, Great Britain on 4, Japan on 3, and the Swedes and the French on 2. This is how it all happened, and we started with an early penalty for the Americans, remember?
Yeah, in late. They were in late, and this is old school match racing now, the hunt. And you see Dean Barker just dip his hull into like one half of his boat into the start box, and then immediately go after Oracle Team USA. They didn't make it into the start box on time. Barker took off and had a nice little lead right out of the blocks. So that not only a nice lead, taking off at 25 knots versus 7, but Oracle was high enough in the box they couldn't actually accelerate, build that apparent wind, and try to get the boat moving. But here's a shocker. USA coming back. It's not a stunner, and for the Japanese, this is something that has been a bit of a trend. They've had leads in a majority of their races, and they just couldn't hold it. Oracle Team USA comes on for a reasonably comfortable win, but we all know full well there was nothing comfortable about it as the race went along.
So here are the results so far. Race 4 with the Japanese taking out the French in some style. The British unable to finish the race against the Kiwis, who claimed their win, and then that excellent victory for the USA over Japan. One of the most impressive facts about the AC50 America's Cup class yachts is that they're able to sail 3 to 4 times the speed of the wind. To the uninitiated, that's nothing less than a complete mystery. Even to the seasoned pro, it's still almost unbelievable. The reason? It's all down to a sailing phenomenon called apparent wind. Artemis Racing's Ian Percy explains.
Apparent wind is the wind that you feel when you're moving along. A good example would be you put your head out of the window of a car on a freeway, and you're going to feel the wind pretty much directly in your face regardless of where the true wind is coming from. With that apparent wind, a bit like the car on the freeway, you get faster and you get more wind. And it's exactly like that for us boats. As we accelerate, our apparent wind increases and we accelerate some more. I'm on the bike now, I'm not moving. The true wind is coming from my left here. As I start to accelerate, we expect the apparent wind to start to move forward. Eventually it would be nearly in front of me. We'll start to move and we'll see what happens. Starts to come to about 90. The speed goes up and it starts to turn in front of me more and more. Well, we showed on the bike that when you start going faster, the apparent wind goes forward, but it also increases. And in a sailing boat, the more wind you have, the faster you go. So the apparent wind allows you to generate more wind, which makes you go faster, which generates more wind. And in the end, we're ending up feeling wind that's 3 times the actual breeze and using that to go 3 times the speed of the wind. We're going to start building speed. As we get faster, the wind will go in front of us. But it's also going to start to speed up. Now the apparent's coming in front of us. This is the equivalent of a blow-cart foiling tack. Well, because we generate so much speed, especially upwind, our apparent winds get very, very high. Because of that, the drag on these boats, which traditionally has all been about hydrodynamics, also becomes about aerodynamics. And so the design of the boat is always referencing not just the foils and the hulls, but also the aerodynamic drag of the boat, the crew, and the wing. And that allows us to create these incredible speeds on the water.
The notion of apparent wind.
Yeah, I think we need to run that one more and more because it's really one of the more difficult things we have to try to explain up here. It's the biggest question that I'm asked all the time is how can these boats, we've seen 4+ times wind speed. That's the boat speeds here today. How can that possibly happen? And I think Ian Percy did a very nice job of explaining for us. We're going to have to run that more often so we don't have to fumble through it ourselves and trying to explain.
Another glorious day in Bermuda. It is the ideal setting, isn't it, for the 35th America's Cup. So many
The Great Britain race, of course, how far behind they got in such a short period of time against the Kiwis, and France the same. France really struggled in that first race against the Japanese, so let's see who could sort things out quicker.
Well, they really need this, the French. Here's how they line up.
Yeah, so Frank Camas and his veteran team, this is crunch time right now. With only 2 wins and losing the tiebreaker, if they end up tied with anybody on wins at the end of this double round robin series, they only have 2 or 3 races left. I think I'll go look into it, but they need this one bad.
Well, the British could do with a pick-me-up as well, couldn't they? Unable to finish their race against Emirates Team New Zealand. It was a retirement for Ben Ainsley. That is not what Ben Ainsley is about, Ken.
No, and, you know, at one stage, enough is enough. I think he used that as a regrouping tool. He used that for a time to go and maybe sort some stuff out that he wasn't comfortable with. They only have so much time in between races, and for the GBR team, yeah, they don't want to end the day on that note. They want to end the day with a win, with a convincing win, and kind of bump things around again, build that bit of you know, that excitement amongst their entire team, not just their team, but all of their tons of supporters that are here in Bermuda.
So the French with port entry, having come out on top when these two met a couple of days ago. On Monday, they launched a terrific comeback after being manipulated at the start, if you remember that one, Kenny.
Yeah, it was a nice little comeback win. It was really the shocker win of the event so far. Here we go again. You know, are they going to get across on the starboard tack? May have an advantage here because the port tack boats haven't gotten to the line on time. So can Ainsley get down and do that hunting maneuver like we saw Dean Barker and the Japanese? I think he's going to do it easy because he's up on his foils easily. The French are in the box, but they're about to get hunted. They're going to go head to wind here. They're going to do a radical left-hand turn and try to avoid this port starboard situation.
Well, they seem to be on collision course, and that is a fairly dramatic start to proceedings here in the entry box. The cat after the mouse.
Yeah, and he's driving right around. This is the prey right now. Ainsley has speed, which means he has maneuverability. He's actually protested And there is a penalty, a port starboard penalty. So Frank Camas, I'm guessing, had the wheel all the way over, but didn't react soon enough to get out of the way.
Still not 100 that we've been through the entry.
Yeah, I think we have.
Okay, copy.
So a dramatic start in the entry box, and the French already with a penalty. Frank Camas, a canny operator, who's pretty much been there and done it. Got the T-shirt across the sailing world. His duel with Ben Ainslie today is going to be a fascinating feature.
Spinning head to wind, and head to wind is way up here. He's got to go, so he's technically still on port tack. Ainslie's on starboard tack. He obviously gets out of the way to avoid. No reason to smash the boats up, and by the way, that wouldn't be good for anybody. And sure enough, Groupama has a penalty right out of the blocks.
Super slow. Okay, nice slow jibe here, guys.
So let's see if we can have a quick word with Richard Slater, the chief umpire. Can you clarify the ruling for us, Richard?
Sure. France entered correctly, but then put themselves into a port starboard situation with GBR, and Rule 10, penalty, France.
There we go then, advantage Great Britain.
So here's this very interesting, this is the phenomena of modern America's Cup. So the gun is gone, but Groupama has to get 2 boat lengths behind Ben Ainslie right now. So Ben Ainslie's in no hurry whatsoever. He's going to start on his foils and ripping.
Well, they know they just got to slow down and back off.
So Ainslie wants to get him in a situation where they get slow while he's fast. So he's trying to figure out a way to maximize his boat speed at the same time that they are absolutely at a minimum boat speed. There he goes.
Here comes Ben Ainslie at Land Rover BAR, right at the tail of the French and hammering his way past them. Frank Camas recognizing that he has to put the brakes on.
He gets
It'll
up
be against every competitive bone in his body.
But he did it well. Frank Camas did that very well. He actually kind of waited. He had a nice building angle. He got the boat out of the water, almost 2 or so boat lengths behind GBR. So Ainslie tried to create that differentiation between the boat speeds, and Frank Camas actually fended it off quite well. That's as good as it could have been. Almost 30 knots here on this reach, and 6 knots of boat speed, and 6 knots of wind speed.
Righties here.
Round mark 1, downwind, Land Rover BAR in front, good pace, setting a good pace, 24, 25 knots. The French, though, not too far behind, and we have a contest. It will really have stung the British on Monday to lose to a nation, of course, with whom they have such a long and combative maritime history.
We should lead out now.
Always an extra bit of niggle. Anglo-French battles.
I will let you talk that one through. I'm gonna take a pass on that one, if you don't mind. Here's where they both struggled in race number 1, is staying on the foils. It's where the other boats, the successful boats in each of the 3 races today, have done a better job of staying on their foils during the maneuvers. Sure enough, Groupama drops that leeward hull down again. Again, that ability to keep the hulls out of the water. Ainslie is up on his foils and going a little bit of a game here on that jibe. You notice on Ainslie's boat, they're not even trying. Usually, all these grinders very quickly run up to that side of the boat. They're not even trying right now. They're not really worried about stability, about righting moment. They're taking their time right now. They're trying to gain a little bit of power in the hydraulic systems and just keep the thing up on the foils.
Yeah. Take the weight up, boys.
There he goes. Now he finally says, take the weight up. French are hanging in there right now, though, aren't they?
No doubt. We've seen some excellent boat speed from them over the first few days here in Bermuda. That has really not been an issue for them. The British preparing to jibe.
Again, let's watch the stability and their ability to fly through this jibe.
Rudders have gone. Rudders went then. Okay.
Rudders.
Not perfect. Rudders are gone. So let's go down to Joey Newton. Joey, when Ben says rudders are gone in the middle of the jibe, what do you think he's talking about?
Well, he's talking about can the rudders stalling. So we know the rudders have little elevators on the bottom, and they produce lift that keeps the boats in the air. And just like an airplane, you can't take when you're going too slow, the wing will stall. He's talking about his rudder elevators stalling, and you would have seen the boat crash back down when that happened.
He's coming high.
So, Ali, I think we're seeing two teams struggling to foil in this light condition, correct? I mean,
that would appear that way.
Okay, so that's why we see a really close race right now. I mean, it's two teams that have similar symptoms. Here's Groupama Team France getting up on their foils, maybe even a little before. The British are going to have to pop that thing out of the water soon, or they're going to be in trouble. Look at the speed difference between the two boats right now.
Yeah, the French really picking up at this point and beginning to edge away to try to perhaps get around the outside.
Hang on.
And they're going to do just that right here, right now.
Want to be a H2 exit this, I think.
So what do you want to do?
Just want to jibe.
You want to jibe now? Yeah. Okay, jibe.
And they're jibing early. They're jibing likely before they get to the ley line to the gate. This will be a crucial time in the race, quite possibly. Again, both boats in the water, displacement mode, we call it. Both hulls in the water right now, both just trying their hardest to accelerate. Big difference between these two boats and what we've seen on some of the other boats here today.
Copy.
Ah, he's coming into pressure.
Okay, let's go wing on here. Let's get a bit of pressure coming on. Just pump it a bit. Good. Okay, taking the depth now.
Cruise, chasing the wind.
Yeah.
And,
okay, this is boat on boat now, Ben.
You can hear the communication
Your choice
on
on
board
modes.
Land Rover BAR. They are keeping a very close eye, as you have to when you are locked in combat this tight with each other. They're recognizing the kind of speed that the French are finding.
Wind speed is still, 7.5 knots out there. So we've seen lighter winds.
A bit more pressure coming on, mate.
A bit more of an old school displacement sailing, kind of flying that big hull to weather.
I want to try and soak
the French are figuring out how to fly at least one hull right now. The Brits are struggling to fly even one, never mind get up on the foils. A bit of a grass growing exercise out here right now.
Yeah, he looks like he's going to commit to that left turn.
He's on starboard,
just get onto his hammer
but
here.
barely moving. They're going 5.2 knots right now. Jibing again. They're jibing 2 times. They're just trying to drive directly in front of Ainsley and lead him around this mark. Force Ainsley to either follow him around, which likely he will, because another jibe right now would be brutally painful, or follow him. So
just looking for
race starts again.
Good VMG. We might roll into attack here if we can't live.
Very tight to the gate. Both crews and looking to pick up a little bit of boat speed at this point, but it's looking like they're all stacked up in the supermarket queue just at the moment.
Yeah, but a good move by Ainsley. You know what? They were going to struggle to build speed on that other tack anyway, so why not just tack and get a tack out of the way and struggle to build speed on the other one? So that was actually a good call by Giles Scott and Ainsley there.
And now the opportunity to split the course. Land Rover BAR heading off in one direction and the French in another.
This way. Let's get into some good numbers here.
Keep the chat down. Go cons off, Nick.
Well, the change of tack really worked for the Americans in that last race against the Japanese, who will benefit from the wind shift this time around.
They were on foils earlier in the race. Let's see. It's almost like whoever can get up on the foils first wins. Both of them are displaced. Both of them are sailing old school multi-hull style, just flying one hull and keeping the other in the water. Can one of them pop?
Boundary is 50 away, Ben.
Okay, here we go, here we go. I'll try and get this board out, CJ.
I think this is going to be close when these guys come back together again. There we go. Out. Out
Okay,
she
we're going to have a
goes.
close cross. Let's keep working that height, please.
Yeah, coming up now.
They're out and finally flying, but that's the good news. The bad news is they only have that much more room to the end of the boundary there, so they're going to have to tack here shortly and start the whole process all over again. And that's the frustrating part of these narrow courses. You finally get it going, and whoop, time to do a maneuver.
And the foiling tack in light wind, very, very tough to pull off.
It's going to be close, though, a close cross. Let's see if they can keep the foiling going.
Happy weight.
Yep.
Just not quite enough wind, is there, to help them pop back up immediately.
They kept the weather foil out of the water effectively, though, so at least they displaced tact. It looks like Kamas has a little bit of pressure on the other side of the race course right now, but this is going to be a reasonably tight cross.
Just keep an eye on those BMGs, lads.
Okay, yeah, just keeping it high here for a minute.
So the British and the French bearing down on each other. There is nothing between them at this point.
Yeah, one more, Matt.
The wind speed is not as they would like it, but the contest is just as we would like it.
Yeah, close. That's a massive bonus, and that patient speed build, Joey Newton out in the water, that patient speed build, not doing radical things to try to get the boat out of the water, but letting it come out of the water if it wants to. Is that fair to say?
We may just make ley line.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think Frank did a really nice job on this whole starboard of not getting baited into bearing away or investing too much to get on the foil. He just waited till he had enough breeze. It may have looked like BAR were gaining, but at the right moment he popped into the foils, and now he's ripping over towards that left side.
Both boats have been on the foils towards the left side. Is there any chance there's more pressure on that side of the course now, or is it still just pretty fluky side to side?
I think it's generally increasing as we come up the course here. So sort of halfway up this beat, the breeze has started increasing. I think we'll see both these boats foiling more as they get in towards this top mark.
And the key here, Ali, is whether either of them can just do one more tack and in. Again, we've seen the horror shows of trying to tack these boats in this light of breeze, and can one of them minimize the maneuver, a maneuver, more than the other? I think that's smart. Just doing that kind of conventional catamaran tack, popping that weather hull out of the water as quick as you can, and then just building speed as speed comes. Not overdoing it.
Yeah, let's hold for late here, please. Talk to Ed about his weight.
Yeah, take the weight. How are we looking on him?
They're trying.
Can you keep this board out, please?
We are about at the minute.
It's getting a bit lighter here.
A bit more pressure coming on the way.
Quite a disparity in the amount of information coming from one boat to the other. The Brits talking an awful lot, the French not so much.
Can you see him yet? No? Bow to bow.
I got him here now.
Okay.
Bow to bow, Ainsley's on starboard tack. If the French could start foiling, they could accelerate over the top. If they can't, they're going to have to dip behind them. They are the giveaway boat.
3, 2, 1. Go.
They were crossing ahead and still decided to tack. Very interesting. I don't think they were laying into that gate. Can they accelerate quick enough to stay ahead? This is a risky move by Kamas.
We should roll around him here. What to left?
Another pass.
Okay, all good.
Land Rover BAR happy with their tactics at this point as they head into the gate and look to keep their boat speed high as they round it.
Okay, he's committing slow.
Yeah, do you think we can get going here?
Boundary is coming 40 seconds away.
Okay, here we go.
Using the boundary for the jibe here, Ben.
Yeah.
It'll be...
Boost again.
All about getting on the foils right now. First one on wins at this stage, and these guys are on.
Going hard.
Different picture, isn't it?
Not quite in the zone yet.
13, 14 knots.
Here we go. This is that key moment. The French look like they're across. Remember, they popped up on the foils right about now. They're going similar speeds, but it does look like they're going to cross. The key, though, is are they going to lay this gate? And I don't think they were. I think that's why Frank Camas thought about tacking right here. I don't know, would have been close. Could he have made it around that mark? Button hooked around that mark and took off instead. He does a tacking maneuver, gets super slow. And of course, we saw what happened. Land Rover BAR goes shooting right around the bow. A little luff by Groupama here at this stage. They do a little head to win, boom. But clearly Ainsley and you heard Giles Scott, they were looking for it, and it didn't fluster them, not even a bit.
In that scenario, Ken, kind of goes without saying that the British were ready for that luff move. They were ready to try to be put off course.
They were ready for the whole thing, but here we go again. One boat up on the foils, the other boat not, and we're going to see Frank go around again. Holy smokes.
Change of lead, potentially. The French making ground.
23 knots versus 15 right now. Have they gotten around the front of them? That's the key. And there it is. We had a little frozen screen there for a second, and we were talking about it. Whoever got up on the foils first wins, especially coming out of maneuvers, and Groupama got up on the foils first and zipped right around in front. But there's another drive to go. Here we go again. The Brits don't have a choice here. They're going to have to, they might have 2 more jibes to go. They may not be able to make this gate in 1. Here we go.
Well, they're taking it on, but you just get the impression that given the line that they're on, they probably need one more maneuver to make that 4th gate.
This is the key. This is a key time right now. If they can accelerate faster than Groupama, they could do the same exact thing again and loop around their bow.
So we understand that the course has been shifted one last time as well, and that they will finish at the end of gate 5. So not a whole lot of time for either to take a commanding grip on this race. Let's check in with Joey Newton out on the water for us. Joey, how do you see this one shaking out from here?
Oh, really, Ali, it's anyone's. We've just seen both these boats seem to be struggling with their foil setup in this much breeze, and the thing is they're struggling as much as each other. So I think whoever gets the last maneuver down paddle will probably be the winner.
Hope he has one.
I agree.
Some pressure, CJ.
2 fast boats when they're up foiling. It's just getting up foiling. Here we go. Let's try it again.
The British are happy with
Nailed it.
Yeah, that was very smooth.
Absolutely nailed it. What's different? You know, that's the interesting part. What did they do different? And that's what they have to learn from this race. They got to take something out of these races, and they just nailed that one.
They're doing their level best to close this gap here as they head for gate 4, the leeward gate. Still the French with the lead. They're picking up speed now as well. A little bit of extra wind down in this lower part of the course potentially.
Now here's where Slingsby in that last race took the chance and did that split at the last minute, but the way these guys are jibing, I'm not sure they can take that risk.
Go early tack. It looks like it's going straight. Okay, early tack.
And they do just exactly that. They don't roll into a jibe. They just do a nice, easy rounding. And they'll try their luck at attack here while they're going fast.
wait up, guys.
The last leg. Let's just remind you all of the fact that the French really need this win. They are locked at the bottom of the table currently with the Swedes on just 2 points. The British have 4, but only 2 race wins here in Bermuda. This is a critical point for both of these crews.
He's still each one. Okay, he's coming back here. I don't think that's right, CJ.
One more race win potentially, Ken. I mean, they might have enough points as it is for Land Rover BAR, but they won't feel comfortable because the other results are so unpredictable, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly, and especially with the light air kind of becoming more the norm around here in Bermuda for the next several weeks. These guys aren't here to participate. They're here to win, and they're going to have to figure out this maneuver instability, inability to foil in this lighter condition, because they're going to see more of it.
Take one exit.
Going on. That's good. Nice. Okay, wait up when you can, guys.
So this race firmly in the balance still. It's going to be a real fight to the death, but they are bearing down on the finish line. The French just with the edge at the moment, but it is tight.
They're forcing a split. BAR is forcing a split here. They didn't go to lay line, trying to tempt the French to tack on them in this situation. The French may do the smart thing, in my opinion anyway, and that is to go all the way to the lay line. Now they're taking a chance with the wind, but they're eliminating one key maneuver of which they're all struggling with. And that's one more tack.
Ouais.
20 secondes.
Un peu de rappel, on n'avance pas.
Working high, please.
So these final maneuvers may well decide the race.
Right now, I believe Ainsley is foiling at 18 knots, and Camas is only going 12. This is by no means over. One more tack for both boats to go.
Well, it might be a photo finish the way things are going at the moment.
It would be appropriate. There's the still foiling.
Okay, tacking.
Can they pull off a foiling tack?
Well, if ever they needed one, they need it right now. Land Rover BAR are in front nominally, but what about this maneuver?
Bow to bow. Starboard tack advantage for Land Rover BAR. They're both displacing. They're both pressed in the water with their leeward hulls, but Ainsley is on starboard. Are either of them laying the finish line right now?
Very hard to tell. The French certainly don't look as if they are. Maybe the British have got just enough of an angle on it.
He'll be hunting them here in this cross if he can get a piece of them on BAR. And there's the dip, here's the dip, and there's the hunt. And you're going to see Ainsley bearing off toward him.
Turning up.
Really nothing to choose between these two, and they are so close to each other. Land Rover BAR just about in front. Have they got enough in the tank to see them over the line? Can they just squeeze through? The French are going to struggle. There is no mistaking that.
Are they going to lay? Are either of them going to lay? It looks like the Brits are going to lay and win this race barely.
Horses, that's a finish.
Just about enough from Land Rover BAR, and they are through.
So that hunting move that he did at the end actually forced Group Ahmad down below the lay line, in essence helped seal the win. Really good match racing tactics by Ainsley coming into that finish and just forcing Group Ahmad and Team France below the lay line and probably cost them the race.
Wow, what a finish between France and Great Britain, between Frank Camas and Sir Ben Ainsley, who will be very relieved and extremely happy to have notched up another win. They're 5th here in Bermuda. Here's how it all broke down, and the fact that we've got France and Great Britain switching and swapping every which way tells you everything.
Well, we've seen lots of lead changes in the past, but we've never seen leg-to-leg changes like that. That's a first for us.
So victories today for Japan, New Zealand, USA and Great Britain. The standings looking like this at the end of the day, with the USA, the defenders, on top of the pile with 7 points. New Zealand with 6, Great Britain delighted to have 5.